Warriors around, don't get caught in the mosh pit. Fuel to the fire, ain't nobody can stop it. Trouble in my city, but you know I'm across it. Got a 40 on my hip and I'm liable to spark it. Throw down these hits, my click is indivisible. I aim, you duck, I squeeze, now you invisible. I'm not afraid of getting physical. All these different chemicals are fogging up my visuals. Bloods on my hands, got slugs on my gunners. Yo, we notorious, we ain't no runners. Bloods on my hands, got slugs on my gunners. Yo, we some warriors, they ain't called gunners. Bloods on my hands, got slugs on my gunners. Bloods on my hands, got slugs on my gunners. Put on my sweat, put on the beat, put on the map, put on my team. Take out every motherfucker in between, know what I mean? Better myself, better my aim, better my rep, better my name. Killing rappers on my hang, I'm by their chains for the fame. Never thought I would it, now I'm running. You don't wanna follow me, I'm looking for.
Good evening, what's going on? And welcome to another broadcast of Steve the Kidney Nurse. I'm your host, Steve Belcher. Good evening. Look, tonight, I'm going to be discussing your dialysis machine. Now, we have many kidney warriors that attend outpatient hemodialysis. You see the clinics all over the place. You can't miss them. They're next to the Family Dollar store. They're in the strip mall. They're next to the blood plasma place. They're right across from Bojangles. They're everywhere. But what do you do when you find yourself coming from the hospital, now being a patient at an outpatient hemodialysis? You come in, you sign a admission form, the consent form. Now you're starting your new journey on hemodialysis. And you walk in and you see this machine. You see this machine. And you're like, my God, what is this machine? That's the machine that's going to clean your blood and remove fluid out of your blood. And you're like, oh my God, how is that possible? Now, your blood doesn't go in the machine, okay? Your blood doesn't go in the machine. Now, since I got one person, I can put the picture up so they can see what we're looking at. Okay. Your blood doesn't go in the machine. You see, as the lines, it goes in the lines and through this filter called an artificial dialyzer. Okay. Now, what happens inside this dialyzer? See, patients, the average patient, when they go to dialysis, they don't think about it. They may look over, see when we put the needles in, see the blood come out and go through the lines and go through the filter. But they don't really know what's happening behind the scenes inside this cylinder type filter. But before we get into that, let's just go into some basic principles of fluids and electrolytes. Just some basic principles. Okay? So look, and most of you don't know, the body is composed mostly of fluid. Water makes up approximately 50 to 70% of the weight of an adult. Okay? Now, fluids are distributed throughout your body among the cells, tissues, and blood vessels. And each of those locations is called a compartment. The cellular compartment, the tissue compartment, the blood vessel compartment. Now, with the compartments, you have intracellular. Intracellular means inside the cells. Intracellular means inside the cells. Extracellular means outside the cells. Extracellular means outside the cells. Intravascular, inside the blood vessels. Intravascular, inside the blood vessels. And then you have interstitial, between the cells. Interstitial, between the cells. So what is meant if you ever hear the word or this word homeostasis? Homeostasis. And basically all that means is equilibrium, balance. But the medical way they explain is homeostasis is the steady internal state of equilibrium in the body. A natural occurring constant balance within the internal environment of the body. So if you got kidney disease or diabetes, your body is not in homeostasis. So homeostasis is the steady state of being. The kidneys conserve or excrete excess fluid as needed to keep the internal environment in balance. That's why they say check the kidneys. Because if the kidneys messed up, your body's not in homeostasis. It's not in a constant state. It's not in balance. Now, what are electrolytes? We always hear that. You know, you got to replace your electrolytes. Go get some Gatorade. Replace your electrolyte. If you get diarrhea, go drink water. Go drink electrolytes. So what are electrolytes? You hear it so much. What exactly is it? Electrolytes are charged particles that can conduct an electrical current. Now, electrolytes in the body control your motor, muscle, and nerve function and maintain the body's homeostasis. The most important electrolyte to consider in uremic patients or patients with kidney failure are the sodium, potassium, calcium, phosphate, magnesium, and bicarbonate. Those are the most important electrolytes that we monitor in uremic patients or patients with kidney failure. You see it each month when they do the lab work. They come by and you look at it. Oh, what's your potassium? What's the phosphorus? So what is pH? That is the measure of acidity or alkalinity of a solution. You hear people say, oh, I'm going to go to store and get some bottled water. Make sure you get alkaline water. They talking about the pH. pH is based on the number of acid ions. And that's all chemistry stuff. But just know, you could probably go to the store and get some pH sticks. And on the back end, the ranges, if it's acidic or more alkalinity or alkaline. Just know less than 7 pH, less than 7, you have more acid ions, is acidic. Greater than 7, more base ions, is alkaline. So blood pH is maintained by the action of buffers, and normal pH of blood is 7.35 to 7.45. That's why you go to the lab, to the doctor, and they do urine tests, they check the pH. So bicarbonate, which is almost similar to baking soda, bicarbonate is a buffer that helps to maintain a constant pH in a solution, even if an acid or base is added. So what does all that mean, Steve? that healthy kidneys maintain normal body pH by making and regulating bicarbonate. The body uses bicarbonate to neutralize acids formed when cells metabolize protein and other food, mean eat it up. So there is a lack of bicarbonate in patients with renal failure because your kidneys are not working. So you can't neutralize the acid. That's why back in the day, when they do your labs, you may have be acidic, and the doctor tell you to give you some bicarbonate, sodium bicarbonate tablets, or tell you to take a spoon of baking soda to try to neutralize the acid in your body. So patients with chronic kidney disease can't excrete enough acids in urine or in a constant state of metabolic acidosis. He said, what is metabolic acidosis, Steve? Metabolic acidosis is a state of too much acid in the blood. Too much. Because you can't excrete enough acid in the urine. And so in dialysis, bicarbonate is added to the dialysate, what you see right here on the picture. This blue jug is the bicarb, and this is the acid, to help maintain the patient's pH. That's why we have acid and bicarb. You see the blue and the red. The acid is the red, the bicarb is the blue. Now, the dialysate must have a pH close to that of normal blood, so it does not change the body pH. And bicarbonate replaces the body's stores of buffer. That's why the staff's supposed to, they had this meter called the Phoenix meter. Patients don't see it, but before patients come in, the staff's supposed to check the pH of the dialysate. And they get that out of the dialysate hoses. But you don't see that as patients, because all that's supposed to be done before you walk through the door. So basically, I wanted just to you guys to see before I hit the machine on why all this is important, what I just said, because it will help you understand the machine. Now, let's talk about this machine. All right. So let me bring you guys around. I don't have nobody on YouTube and Facebook, so I want to look at you guys. So with this dialysis machine, let me tell you how it works. We know that one of the jobs of the kidneys is to filter waste out of the blood. Okay? Now, when they stop working, this machine is the lifesaver. This machine, we all know it, because if you don't do dialysis, whether it's PD, whether it's hemo, you won't stay alive long. So let's take a look at how this machine works. Number one, let's look at this pump. This pump right here keeps the blood flowing from the body to the dialyzer and back into the body. So as you can see, as this pump is pulling the blood from the arterial and it's coming through the pump, it's going through the filter, it's coming out, it's going down into the venous line and back into the patient. And it's a constant rotation. Okay? Now, sometimes they may have to reduce that pump speed. You may have some issues with your arm, your catheter, or you may feel sick, and they may reduce that pump. You can see right here the pump speed. Okay. Number two, let me see something. I got to pull up another screen so you can see this. Hold up. I don't have nobody on YouTube or Facebook, so. All right. So, okay, so this screen right here, right? You can see UF time. So the technicians and the nurses, they program your treatment, whatever your orders are. Or let's say, for instance, you're supposed to take off 3 liters. They're going to put 3 liters up there, your treatment time, right? And then once they program that in, the rate is going to come out, meaning how much fluid is taken off or removed per hour. And this is how much has been removed, right? And then you got your profiles down here and your other switches that go into the machine. This starts the treatment where it says treatment pause. You got your TMP, transmembrane pressure, your venous pressure, which monitors the venous needle, and the arterial pressure. Now, an alarm will sound if something goes off on your machine. Let me put it up because I didn't have anybody watching. This right here is programmed. So if an alarm goes off, you will hear that sound. And you'll see maybe something in red or the light flicking off. They should be coming to see what's going on because the pump now stops. If the pump stops, your blood is going to be prone to clotting because it's not moving. Okay? Number 3 is on this machine, hold up, let me get back. It's the dialyzer. Now that acts as the artificial kidney, this right here. You can see this happened to be just a different filter, but it does the same thing, just a different maker. Like you got Cadillac, Chevrolet, same thing. Nitro, Fresenius. Number 4, the dialysis hoses. So the fluid comes in, right? The fresh bath comes in through the hose, and you can't see it's a membrane in here. In this filter, you can't see it, but it separates the blood and the bath. And it does something called, let me read this to you so you can understand. Hold up. Because what happens is something called diffusion and osmosis. And so you're like, what is osmosis? Osmosis is the movement of fluid. Osmosis is the movement of fluid through a semi-permeable membrane from an area of lesser solute concentration to an area of greater solute concentration until equilibrium is reached. So what does that all mean? So basically, you're going to have a lot of waste in here, right? In the blood. And you're going to have the membrane separating the waste and the fresh bath. When that comes into play, it kind of equals out where the waste goes to the area where it's less waste because of the solution is pulling it over, right? And basically, the waste that can go out of these pores or the membrane goes out through this red hose in a solution or as waste. And then you got the fresh bath. And it's just a constant cycle of this going on. That's why we say it's not a good idea to get off dialysis early. And when you think about it, the pulling, it's a vacuum that's pulling the fluid, right? This continuous cycle over 3 to 4 hours in a unit trying to pull off 4 liters of fluid. This is where the issue comes in with feeling washed out. Where you got all this going on, where the fluid is moving from intravascular to extravascular and all that. All that is taking place in here. And then, people wonder, oh, I don't feel so good. So that's why we say home dialysis may be better for a lot of people, because if you've taken off a lot of fluid, then you want to be on dialysis a lot longer so you can have a slower treatment. So it says, at what point during the hemodialysis treatment will diffusion cease to occur? Diffusion will continue throughout the dialysis treatment until the concentration, meaning the bath in the blood of each electrolyte found in the patient's blood is equal to the electrolyte concentration in the dialysate. Okay? Now let's move on with the dialysis machine. And so, as I was saying, the used dialysate goes out of the red line, and the fresh dialysate, the bath right here, comes through the blue line, right? But it doesn't get in contact with the blood because you have a membrane that you cannot see in that filter. You have a membrane you cannot see that separates the blood and the dialysate. Okay? You can't see it, but right here, you have a heparin pump. Now, a heparin pump is on the machine. On this would be the heparin pump right there. The heparin pump is on the machine, which is right here. Put the syringe in. because for a lot of patients, their blood clots, especially patients with a catheter. And so we may give them an infusion, meaning we'll give them heparin over the treatment course, but it may be like 500 cc's per hour or 1,000 cc's per hour. So again, we use a medication called heparin, which can keep blood from clotting. Now, if you receive heparin, they may use a heparin pump. They may not use a heparin pump. It will release the amount that they program in the machine. And then at the bottom, you got the plastic jugs. All right, on this machine, they right here, I'm moving so you can see them. You got the plastic jugs on those machines, which hold the ingredients to make the bath, which are the electrolytes. And the bicarbonate, which is the buffer, is in the blue. But a lot of times now, you hook up the blue and the red behind the machine into the wall where the bath is coming from a central location now. It's not coming from jugs. Now, you may have a jug if you have a special bath, like a 1K, 3 calcium, or 2K, 3 calcium, or 3K, 2.5 calcium. So when you on dialysis, right, which a lot of people don't even know what's going on. When you at outpatient dialysis, you sitting on the machine, you come in, put your stuff up, you put your headphones on and bring your TV around, and you got your arm out or your catheter, and they put you on. And, you know, you're sitting there wondering, like, okay, they put 2 needles in, or they hook my catheter up, and I see my blood. It goes in through a machine, some tubings. What's up with that? So this machine, this dialysis machine, monitors your treatment. And that's why it's important for you as a dialysis patient to know what monitors to look at and what they mean in case something goes wrong and there's nobody around to reset the machine. So again, did you know that the blood never actually goes into the dialysis machine? It doesn't go in the machine and then comes back out like you put it in the oven and it comes. No. Here are some of the roles of your dialysis machine. Circulating your blood through the dialyzer. That's one role. Keeping track of blood flow and blood pressure. Yeah, we check your blood pressure every 30 minutes or sooner if you're having issues on dialysis with hypotension, which is low blood pressure. The machine also measures how much fluid is removed from your body. And it also mixes fresh dialysate used to clean your blood. And for a lot of times, a lot of patients don't know when the machine, when it may say low conductivity, that means there's something wrong with the bath. Yes, that means there's something wrong with this bath. Maybe it ran out. And if you get one of these special baths, or your parents, and you see how small it is, and parent is 3 hours or 4 hours, we normally have to change one of these if a patient is 4 hours. And sometimes what happens, if this runs low, if you're on the machine and it goes into low conductivity, the longer they take to resolve that issue, meaning the staff go and get another bath and changing it. Now the machine got to come up and correct itself and get back into conductivity. All that time that the machine says low conductivity, that stops your treatment time. Anytime the machine stops, it stops the treatment time, meaning your treatment is still running, but the UF stops. So that's why a lot of patients say, look at their clock, and if they know they run 3 hours and they see the blood hit and it's 8 o'clock or 6 o'clock, in their mind, they thinking they coming off at 9 o'clock. And if something went on with that machine where it kept alarming, or something wrong with the machine and it goes into bypass, it stops the UF, meaning ultrafiltration. And so you got to make up that time. So let's talk about the dialyzer, because this is part of it. The dialyzer filters waste from your blood. Now, only about 2 cups of blood leave your body at a time. That's only about 9% of your blood. All right. Now, there are 2 sections. There are 2 sections inside this dialyzer that you can't see. One section contains blood, and the other contains the cleaning solution, the dialysate. These 2 sections are separated by a filter called a membrane. You can't see it, but it's in here. This membrane has microscopic holes that water and waste can fit through. They're microscopic. You can't see it. But blood cells cannot. So water and waste can fit through these holes, these microscopic holes, but blood cells can't. Now the dialysate, pours waste through the filter and out of the blood. The dialysate with the waste is flushed down the drain, and the clean blood is returned to you. So this is where the magic happens. Extra fluid in the blood is also removed in a similar way. So the dialysis machine is also supposed to keep you safe. Like, Steve, what do you mean keep you safe? If air gets into the blood tubing, if this bag runs dry, this saline bag, and air gets into the tubing, it can kill you. It's called an air embolism. Luckily, this machine has 2 air traps. One is before the dialyzer, and one is after. Now, if an air bubble gets through the traps, you got the sensor right here. Should shut this down, clamp it right there so no air gets to the patient. It senses the air and it clamps it right there. And then you hear the alarm sound. Also, the blood pump is stopped until the air is removed from the blood. Now, I'm showing on YouTube and Facebook just the screen of the dialysis machine. You got here the blood pump speed on the screen. Let me see if I can change this. Hold up. Here we go. So this is the same one I got up on YouTube. So on this particular screen, you have the wait a minute, move out the way. Hold on, let me get out of the screen. Right? You got the goal at the top. It says UF goal. You have the UF time. That means the ultrafiltration time, which means 10 minutes left. And then you got the rate, UF rate. That's how much fluid is be pouring off per hour, 470 cc's or milliliters. And then you go down and you have the how much has been removed, which is 1,928. Right? That's how much fluid you removed. So far, you got 10 minutes to go. You're trying to pull off the goal of 2,000. You got 10 minutes left. You should be able to make it to the 2. Over here where it says RTD, it's your dialysis time, return time. And then here is the conductivity of the bath. And then you got the temperature right here. Now, and your dialysis flow rate. Now, let me tell you, some of you warriors, if you're on the machine and you feel cold and it's not like that in the facility, check the machine temperature because they normally have it set on 35.5, especially if you got low blood pressure or problems with low blood pressure, because the lower the temperature, you chill. And when you shiver, it brings your pressure up. So make sure you check the temperature. Is right here on the machine next to the UF time. You can see a little bit part of it says temp. they can adjust that on the machine. Okay, you can see it on the screen here where it says 36.1. And then you got these other buttons at the bottom of the screen that goes into other aspects of the machine. Okay. So right now, this is going through an internal test called the online clearance test. And you can see here it says running, treatment running. And so also pay attention to that. Like if you go to the bathroom, right? If you got to go to the bathroom to get off and say, hey, I got to go to the bathroom. And say you got like an hour, hour and a half to 2 hours left. Make sure they pause the treatment. Make sure they pause the treatment. Tell them when you get off, hey, so-and-so, can you pause my treatment? And watch them before you go to the toilet. Watch them to see if they pause the treatment, because let me tell you, if you go to the bathroom and they don't pause the treatment, the machine is still running like you on. So it's pulling the fluid from the saline bag. It's pulling the fluid from, you're not on the machine, you're in the bathroom handling business. And so it's still counting down as if someone is on the machine. So when you come back on, right, now they hook you up, you're getting fluid that's already in the machine, the saline. And now when you go back on, the machine goes back to where it left off at. And it's not going to pull the correct amount of fluid off. So that's why you got to pause the machine so it doesn't pull any fluid. When you come back, you restart the treatment. They do that to a lot of patients. And when you get off the machine, you may not even hit your target weight. Say, well, that extra 200-300, ask them to bleed the prime if they know how to do it. Person on, let me clear the screen. Someone on TikTok says the pausing is not the problem. The problem is that extra 300 cc's of saline. What they're talking about when they come back from the bathroom, the fluid that's in the lines that we use to return, and we connect the lines, and you got fluid in it. What you can do, which a lot of patients don't know about, you got to be old school to know about this. You can do something called bleed the prime. Technicians like, what is bleed the prime? A lot of these new age technicians don't know nothing about bleeding the prime. What's bleed the prime? What's bleed the prime? Bleeding the prime is when you put the patient on and you put the venous line in the receptacle, that bucket on the side of the machine, and as you connect them, and their blood is coming from the arterial needle, it's pushing the saline in the line into that receptacle, into that bucket. And then, where's my lines? And then, soon as the blood gets in right here, it starts turning pink. And you get right here, you stop the pump, clamp the line, and hook it up to the patient, and you start the treatment. Now they don't get the extra 300 cc's in the line because you bled it out. But a lot, they don't know about that these days. You got to be old school. And then a lot of units probably don't want their technicians to do it because they didn't teach it. That's something you got to find a technician that's been doing this about 20 years or more to know about bleeding the prime. I don't know, maybe they doing it at clinics across the country because there's a lot of damn clinics out there. So let's just talk about, so that's it with the machine. So what I can recommend when you go to dialysis, if you go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, going tomorrow, start by seeing what type of filter you're on. Is it a 200? Is it a 160? Is it a 180? Is it a Elisio 150? Is it a Revaclear? Start with that. Start with knowing how much, if they program your machine right, if they put the correct time, if you 3 hours, 303, if you 3 hours and 15 minutes, 315, or your 3 hours, 3.5, 330, 345, 345. Make sure they program your machine right. Are you on the right dialysis flow rate? Is it 500, 600, 800? Do you get heparin? Do you get a maintenance? A heparin maintenance? These are things that you should know as a dialysis patient going to outpatient, because what if you do get heparin and you don't even know about it, and someone comes to work at your unit and they put you on and they didn't give you the heparin, and all of a sudden now you're having issues this day, blood clot. You want to know, why my blood clot? And it never happened before. You'd be like, oh, this happens sometime. And then next thing you know, you go back in the room and you see a label, patient was supposed to get heparin. You didn't even draw the heparin up. You rushing. So that's why if you knew if you got heparin or not, then you would know when you go on, something's missing. I didn't get my heparin. So these are things you should know as a patient. What needle size you're on? Is it 15 gauge? Is it 16? Is it 17 gauge? Is it 14? What's my pump speed? Is it 300? Is it 350, 400? Is it 450? All this matters. It matters to how you feel, if you're getting the clearance taken out properly, your blood work at the end of the month. All that, this waste getting cleared out of your body is a big deal, because that determines if you itching, if you got the metallic taste in your mouth, if you feel washed out, if you got dry scalp. All right, so on this machine, if you don't know, what technician and nurses have to do a patient safety and machine safety check. They have to do a patient safety and machine safety check. Safety checks must be completed during every routine blood pressure and machine check. So what I mean by that? You a patient, you on dialysis, you know that that blood pressure pump goes off every 30 minutes. But during that, at that 30-minute, when that pump is going off, you may not see your technician around. You could be, got the blanket over your face, sleep, and you feel the pump going off. Oh, it's just going off again. Pump just going off. But did you know that when that pump, or when it gets your blood pressure, patient safety checks are supposed to be taken? You're like, Steve, what are the safety checks you talking about? I'm talking about checking your access for bleeding, checking the bloodlines for kinks. Yeah, like these lines, checking them for kinks. Checking the color of your blood, the arterial pressure, the venous pressure, the dialyzer, bloodline and dialysate line connections. Check that the access is not covered. And in some places, they have this thing called a hemosafe clamp. It's a clip that connects on the venous CVC bloodline and to the bloodline. This white clamp, so the lines don't separate. Also, you're supposed to check the position of the dialyzer. You see how this is? This is the right side is supposed to be up, with this number facing up. If you go into your clinic and you see this dialyzer upside down, ask the technician, can they turn it upside up? The venous side is only up when we prime in the dialyzer, getting the air out. Once after we finish priming the dialyzer, we turn it with the red side up. You saw it on the hoses. The red up, blue at the bottom. When you go to treatment, make sure that's how your connection is on the machine. Red here, blue at the bottom. Not the other way around. Now, the machine checks during this time include checking the blood flow rate, which is right here. I'm sorry, the blood flow rate. The dialysate flow rate. Let me pull it up on the screen. The blood flow rate is right here. The dialysate flow rate is up to the right. The venous pressure. The transmembrane pressure, the TMP. The ultrafiltration rate. The arterial pressure, which you can't see in this picture, but it's right next to the venous pressure. The amount of fluid that has already been taken off. And in this case, it's 1.928. Also, it's extremely important to check that the venous and arterial chambers are filled to the appropriate level. And that's on on these machines right here, that's these levels right here. The arterial and venous should be filled up. Also, the heparin pump. The heparin pump should be checked to make sure it's delivering the right amount of heparin. So let's look at some additional safety checks. May look like this. Checking that the transducer protected. This is a transducer, this filter right here. Are fluid and blood free for accurate arterial and venous pressure readings. You see these filters right here, they read the pressure. And you don't want them to get wet. One right here and one right here. You may see blood in this line if you're a patient at your unit sometime. Also, this also prevents the machine internal transducer from becoming wet and contaminated. Also, additional safety checks include assuring that the saline line is double clamped. Like I always say, this is the saline line. You're going to make sure it's clamped on the line and on the arterial part. Also, you want to check for extra heparin doses, saline rinses, sodium profile. That pertain to you guys. Also, if you get heparin, right, when might the heparin dose be decreased by the doctor? The heparin dose should be decreased for any reported or observed bleeding problems, both moderate and severe. The heparin dose may be decreased for the following reasons. 1, prolonged bleeding from both cannulation sites. 2, prior to surgery. 3, nosebleed. 4, GI bleed. 5, heavy menstrual periods. Or 6, if the treatment time or dialyzer size is reduced. That's when heparin may be decreased. Also, the dose may need decrease when patients are taking anticoagulant medications such as aspirin, Coumadin, and Plavix. Okay, let's look at now, here's something that you should look at, warriors, if you go to dialysis. How can you tell if a dialyzer, and let me tell you something. What I'm about to tell you, this is not taught to patients on the machine. This is from information for staff. This is for staff, training technicians and nurses. And I'm taking the information and flipping it around so you can know what to look for in case someone doesn't know. Now you know. You see, not the average patient comes in and know, how can you tell if your dialyzer clotting? Like if you're on dialysis right now, right, and I come to you, you sitting there watching Wayne Brady or Drew Barrymore, whatever the guy name is, on Price is Right. I said, hey, Mr. Jackson, Ms. Smith, Can you tell if this filter is clotting? You're like, what do you mean, young man? Can you tell or recognize if blood is not moving? No, what's happening? But how can you tell as a patient if your dialysis is clotting? Which, again, the average patient does not know because they don't care. The technician should know this. But what if they don't know it? That's where you come in. So I want to give you the tip. How can you tell if a dialyzer is clotting? Indication of a clotting dialyzer are a rising TMP. Rising TMP. Rising venous pressure. Dark blood in the dialyzer. An air detector alarm. Yes, when you look at right here, if this is dark, really, really dark, also if your venous pressure, which on that thing when I showed you the venous pressure, if you know where your baseline is, that's what I'm saying, know your pressure, your arterial pressure, your venous pressures. If you know your baseline and you see the pressure rising, something's going on. You know you don't have an infiltration because you don't feel the pressure. So it must be the dialyzer clotting. And you look over, you ask the technician, hey, run some saline through my line. I want to see if I got a clot in the chamber. Next thing you know, they're running saline through the line. They run the saline, and next thing you know, you see a black clot in the line. So that's how you can tell if this is clotting. A rising TMP, and on the machine it says TMP. You can't miss it. So if you get an air and blood alarm, an air bubble sensor with a venous line clamp is located below the venous drip chamber. If air bubbles are sensed in the blood, the clamp immediately closes. This stops the bubbles at that point and prevents the air from entering into your bloodstream. So with that being said, I'm over the hour point. Get ready to close down on YouTube and Facebook. I'd like to thank the 3 people who came on. Thank you guys. Hope you got something out of this. Again, just know your machine so you can know what's going on. If someone new comes in or whatever it may be, as long as you know your machine, you don't have to know it inside out, but the basics. And what I mean by the basics, what's your venous pressure? When your blood flow rate is at your regular pump speed, like 400 or 450, what's your usual venous pressure? What's your usual arterial pressure? what's your dialyzer size? What size needles do you use? Do you get heparin? What's your blood flow rate? What's your dialysate flow rate? These are all like simple things that you can know. So if you go on and you get ready to sit down, you look at the filter, and you know if you're supposed to be on the 200, you see a 180, you want to know why you're not on the 200. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Not sure when I'll be back on this week. It's going to be a busy week, but I'd like to thank you guys who watched on YouTube and Facebook. You know, we got to get this audience up because, I mean, this information you're not going to get from the dialysis unit. Nobody, unless they take the time out and talk to you about the machines and the alarms and different aspects of it. Then ain't nobody got an hour and 12 minutes at a dialysis clinic to sit there and educate. You know, they got other stuff to do. As I've mentioned before, those days are gone. So if you don't catch a broadcast like this, or someone at your unit don't tell you about the machine or what to look out for, or how to recognize this or recognize that, you're just going to be ignorant and not know. So thank you guys. See you around. Take care. If you go to dialysis tomorrow, have a safe treatment and stay blessed. All right. I'm out, guys. Peace.
Warriors around, don't get caught in the mosh pit. Fuel to the fire, ain't nobody can stop it. Trouble in my city, but you know I'm across it. Got a 40 on my hip and I'm liable to spark it. Throw down these hits, my click is indivisible. I aim, you duck, I squeeze, now you invisible. I'm not afraid of getting physical. All these different chemicals are fogging up my visuals. Bloods on my hands, got slugs on my gunners. Yo, we notorious, we ain't no runners. Bloods on my hands, got slugs on my gunners. Yo, we some warriors, they ain't called gunners. Bloods on my hands, got slugs on my gunners. Bloods on my hands, got slugs on my gunners. Put on my sweat, put on the beat, put on the map, put on my team. Take out every motherfucker in between, know what I mean? Better myself, better my aim, better my rep, better my name. Killing rappers on my hang, I'm but they chase for the fame.